time, welcome to attempt 25, shockingly enough, to get a surprisingly consistent thing to actually be consistent. For some reason, as soon as it meets this screen, it decides to completely melt down. But the idea is supposed to be to show how to start off the Stubborn Wretch challenge here. And, yeah, could definitely be going better. I think it's something about 2020, you know? Alright, so Chariot, good card to start off with. As I was saying before, I mean, we got Butt Spartan here, but yeah. Generally speaking, sounding like a douche for these cards is kind of what we're going to be going for. Just talking about strength, honor, that kind of thing, we'll generally get the stats we're looking for. We're ideally looking for strength, vitality, and resistance. We'll see how we do. And there we go, start off with Wheel of Fortune. That is basically a gimme card. It's not going to necessarily change too much stuff on its own, but in certain situations, it's enough to turn around a situation that's going badly. So there's that. And hopefully the music's actually playing this time. And yeah. Really surprised how many attempts this has taken. Because yeah, it's one of those interesting situations where when you do it casually, it's just like, it's no problem. Like I was saying before, literally every other day, we'll just go start another one of these and just kind of run it until it dies and then try it again. So for those unfamiliar, the Stubborn Wretch challenge is essentially permadeath, but you also can't use a store, you've got to be solo. And well, that's kind of about that there. And generally we're going to be a douche throughout this entire thing. Tell off Mr. Lands here, as you do. But yeah, the main point of this this little video here was supposed to be to create a guide of sorts on how exactly to break the vanilla game very early on to give yourself a bunch of advantages you shouldn't otherwise be able to have. And funny notes from before as well, these guys' kills actually count towards your total kill count. However, your own do not until you actually become part of your own faction. It's funny how that works. Now we're going to do the setup a little bit differently this time. You get the sword there, you get the axe, you get the fist, everybody else gets nothing. I guess we just won't do the sword thing now. Why will become clear in a little bit here. Now what kind of stats did we roll? Okay, that's basically perfect. Well, almost perfect. So we basically rolled 39 on strength and vit. That is 1 point off from perfect. We got decently high dex, agility, and avoidance. Just seriously, this one was very clean. Mind is pretty good as a substitute for resistance, so this is dang near perfect as far as I'm concerned. Alright, fantastic. So we take all this stuff away because we are trying to kill off our starting team in order to, well, make sure that they're not quite alive anymore and we can take all the experience and all the skill points for ourselves. Then we skip through all the tutorial because of course we do. We don't need to listen to these guys, they're about to be in the river. And this continues the entire run, like almost every time except for when we actually have classes that we want to preserve a little bit later. Once we get to the about 20s range, we usually want to take experience over actually preventing it. In most cases, since you have guests, they would be auto-leveling a class for you, which isn't always a good thing. Like, usually you want to be able to take those first few levels as said class. So for any unaware, you get base stats every time that you go up a level as a particular class during a fight, meaning that the usual, like, 1 to 7 jump you get from Tynemouth, from doing it solo, is something that will give you roughly 1 to 2 stat points, depending on the class, and it's going to be across the board. So you'll end up, you'll typically get 0.1 to 0.3 in each skill, or rather not in each skill, but in each stat. And then that just scales up as time goes on. It just all stacks onto your base stats, which are underneath your class stats, and then your skills are their own separate thing, which end up modifying all of it. Is it a weirdly complicated system? Yes. Does it actually play complicated? No. It's actually funny because it's kind of an interesting amalgamation of a bunch of different things. A lot of it like I was mentioning last time, I feel like I'm going to mention that a lot now. But yeah, a lot of it is kind of like if somebody took a look at FFT or any other things that they potentially wanted to add in the original Tactics Ogre, but then couldn't quite implement. That's where a lot of the skills and whatever else come in this game. So, for example, the finisher abilities were something that was in the original SNES Tactics Ogre, but pretty much nobody ended up using them because most folks didn't do Palace of the Dead. So yeah, in this one, everybody gets finishers, but they have to be proficient in whatever they're using. Like, you can give somebody basic weapons training at any point, but once they become a professional, that's when they can start using different kinds of finishers, and then once you rank them up, you get all kinds of crazy moves out of it. Some are amazing, some not so amazing. There we go, finally. Because apparently that was too much to ask for last time. So as far as what we're going for here, you want Cashua out first, so she's not running around healing everybody, so that you could potentially lose a couple of the knights in the first couple of rounds. Yes, even unarmed, these guys will happily punch their way through this team. It's kind of hilarious. Actually, it seems like giving an axe to lands kind of makes them weaker. It's funny how that works. Alright. Hang on. Let me adjust the size of the chat real quick. See, just went Final Fantasy Tactics, except I can be a bird wielding a wielding a gun and sword at the same time. Is Tio right for me? Yeah, pretty much. Except you basically have to go friggin' travel all the way to the bottom of hell to go pick up a sword to be able to get a Fusilier, to go transfer that guy onto a bird guy in order to be able to kill that bird guy and then have him get eaten by your original bird guy in order to have your bird with a friggin' bird pirate. Oh man, it's so weird how they implemented those extra classes though. Like seriously, the main point of Buccaneer is apparently supposed to be for giving like dual wield Canopus or something like that, but it, like the whole sword and gun thing, you literally can't learn to fire a gun properly until you go to the bottom of the Palace of the Dead. So what if I just want to be a pumpkin rockstar and fight Seafool through the power of Glamrock? Can I do that? If you feel like invading heaven. Man. Yeah, I want, you know, again, I would have loved to sit around for the pitch meetings for some of this stuff for this game. It's like, if there's one of those things where they're like, you can pick, you know, 100 things to go back and go watch their completion. Like, that would definitely be on the list. Because just, what kind of weird stories do they come up with for this one, you know? Who was it that decided that you can only have end game scaling for a lot of the side game content you get at kind of the middle of the game, and then by the time you're actually the right level for it, it's just gone now, or you have to invade heaven to get musical instruments, or you basically have to buy sheet music in order to play music because it explodes when you play music on it. So pumpkin fights and dethrones God feels fitting for an end to 2020. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty dang much. Now, this year's been wild. Not that that's anything new at this point, but yeah. There was this crazy thing I was seeing earlier that, you know, the Pharma Bro guy, the guy that was like jacking up the prices of medicine and whatever else, and then apparently bought some crazy expensive Wu-Tang album or something along those lines. Like, apparently the reporter lady that was reporting on everything he was doing, basically divorced her husband to go date that guy, which is just downright strange. It just reminded me because it was on this list of just bizarre ways the 2020 is ending. For some reason, that was one of the ones up there. I don't know what they were thinking. Yeah, the other thing on there was Cyberpunk, which oh man, I don't think I've ever seen anything go from like ridiculously hyped to people just shoveling poo on it every day. Really gotta feel for those guys, because the people making it had pretty much nothing to do with what happened there. Any dang ways. Come on, crit. Warren, I swear, man. You are not allowed to keep evading stuff with a really high chance to hit. You're a weird old man sitting right in the open. Actually, it's, Okay, it's a weird mental image to bring to mind here, because basically, lately, every day, I've been kind of alternating between doing stubborn Wretch runs and between doing, well, what are essentially YOLO runs of Outer Worlds. So for anyone that's never watched those videos, there's this guy that basically did a run of New Vegas. He's currently doing a run of 4, did a run of Fallout 3, and then just bailed on a run of Outer Worlds, where the basic idea is that it's an Iron Man run. Like, if you die, you're dead. You have to delete your save, but you can't actually heal. Like, you can't use any healing items. Now, for Outer Worlds, though, there's kind of a weird thing in which just passive regeneration is kind of a thing there. So they tried to set up the run in such a way that you just basically can't use any passive regeneration whatsoever, which completely locks out one of your main attributes. Basically, the thing automatically has to be a minimum, and then also prevents you from sleeping. So I'm not entirely sure how viable that would be anyway. I think that's why they bailed on it. Any dang ways. Pretty dang fun to mess with, though. Mostly because if you end up setting all your character speed stats to the absolute maximum, you basically just it more or less just becomes Mirror's Edge at that point, and it's pretty fantastic. I really like that game. Okay, so back to weird setup strats I was talking about earlier. So for this particular run here, there's a very rare chance that the archers will drop a class mark for you. It's technically in their drop table. I've gone and tested it. I've never managed to actually get the thing to drop, at least on normal run. The reason why that's relevant is because there's essentially 3 characters that you can choose early on in the game that will allow you to pick up the well, they will essentially allow you to scale up some gear to whatever level you want. So the first one, the one that we're choosing right now, is going to be the warrior you get when you first start. It's one of your 5 starter units, and we basically want to get a full set of armor off them in order to basically breeze past the next few fights without any real issues. Although, funnily enough, we won't use it for a couple fights, and then after that we get a second set anyway, so there's not really too much importance for getting it done right now. We're just kind of getting a couple extra stat points out of it. This will all make sense in a moment. Anyway, for the moment, if we can get this guy to... Okay, I guess he's just going to block then. If we can get him to drop a class mark, that changes the run entirely, because this is kind of your first big break point. It's not the question of whether you're genocide or not, it's whether you get archer or knight at the very start. Please roll 32. Beautiful. Alright. So you rolled a bag. That's already looking a little bit promising. Question is, can we grab that without making this guy angry? Probably not. And we don't really want to contend with a caster back there, so we're just going to stand on good accuracy tiles and just plink this guy till he's dead. He can 3-shot us. We need to 5-shot him. I mean, that's fine. Don't block or anything. I'm sure that won't be an important thing. Anyway, you can't cheese this guy because he's basically just going to be bum rushing you. So if you run off to these little water tiles, you can just hide from him. He's also relatively slow because he's a hammer build. That's going to kind of come back to bite us in a little bit here. But yeah, you kind of just abuse his slowness and your relative fastness in order to hit him with arrows a whole bunch. Let's see if this shot actually has a chance to land, and yes, shot him right in the kneecap. By the way, Mr. Vale, if you're still here, did we get the mark? We did not get a mark. That's a bummer. Oh well. Got up to 4. That's about as ideal as it gets for this first fight, because you get 2 benefits out of that. And by the way, the question I was about to ask is the sound okay? So if you get all of the points that you can, you're going to wind up with 150. It means you can pick up some anatomy. Take anatomy, slap it on there. You now scale everything up about 5%. On top of that, you get the Lombardia, so you can start training anatomy while also one-shotting everything on the map. Beautiful. Yeah, the previous run, I kid you not, somehow the RNG worked in such a way where they kept missing 70% over and over. The friendly characters kept repeatedly hitting really low odd chances. And, yeah. we wound up with 4 characters surviving the initial fight, which wound up only getting 2 instead of 4, which then ended up refusing to allow the second one to happen either, which then just literally everything about that setup kept going wrong. So, yeah. So you missed it. What was the question? I'm a little zoned out. I forgot what the question was. Oh yeah, sound. Is the sound okay? Because I forgot to turn up the music earlier. And now the music is hopefully turned up. Ideally loud enough that it covers the breathing noise. I messed with the distance on this microphone here to try to deal with that, by the way. Probably should have mentioned that earlier. But yeah, I've tried messing with the distance and whatever else. I've tried messing with the settings. It's bizarrely good at picking that one specific noise up. I mean, even when there was a bunch of random noises in the background, it wouldn't pick that up. But breathing noises, it's like, oh man, this is our priority. We're building this to pick up breathing noises. This is gonna be, I guess, an ASMR mic. I don't know. That's what that's all about, right? People listen to people breathing or something. I will say, as I'm pretty sure any married folks could attest, that's not a thing that actually helps you sleep. It's like, dude, why is everybody snoring? And then you just, like, one of the big perks of being married there is, like, yeah, somebody happens to start snoring next to you, and then either you get punched for doing the snoring, or you just ignore it, because you're not the one that does the punching. Anyway. No, seriously, apparently, I have gotten woken up on more than one occasion by getting kicked in the head. It's kind of hilarious. Oh well. Although, funnily enough, not for snoring. But, oh well. So yeah, just like the previous fight, we're going through and betraying all our dudes in order to take all that juicy experience. You can technically get more, and actually if you have Vice survive this fight in particular, you can get it up to 8, which allows, I mean, you get slightly better stats. It probably won't even give you an extra point for most of them, but some of them it might. It might seem really weird to have it be that imprecise, but you can't actually see the decimals, and they're just kind of going on in the background. So since every level gained as a particular class will give you 0.1 to 0.3 per level up, it creates this odd situation where, yeah, you just sometimes win the stat lottery. Like, I remember seeing a forum post a while ago that people thought it worked like Fire Emblem or something like that, where you just got random stat ups, and I think that's what they were trying to give the illusion of, but no, that's not actually what it does. Alright, what condition is it? Okay, if he's in good condition, we can just go ahead and start cutting through their guys then. Just start taking down whoever's close. Now, as far as setup for this goes, there's a lot of different ways that this can go. Usually, if you don't end up losing any loot bags and stuff goes well, your usual setup is just going to be a good mix of breach-inflicting items, as well as a few different class marks and a generally good selection of weapons. You usually don't get a crossbow, but you usually at least have access to some hammers and axes. By itself, that's not super amazing, but you ideally want to wind up with a good collection of level 1 items to be able to pull off some tricks later off in this challenge. Because, yeah, this whole class leveling thing is pretty crucial to being able to pull it off, because as the game gets harder, you can rank up your skills constantly, and part of the thing that will be shown off in this particular run here is to try to show how much can be done without doing any direct grinding. I mean, we're functionally speaking going to be running through this thing without stopping to take many extra fights, or any, if everything goes well. You usually don't want to take any random fights whatsoever until Chapter 2, or until you end up getting a finisher. So I forget if I mentioned that earlier or not, but yeah, that's a thing that happens. Simply because when you come in there, you're usually going to be either 1 or you're going to be scaled up. So you're either not going to have the equipment to win the fight, or you're not going to have the stats to win the fight. If you come in at 1, you'll automatically be at a level disadvantage, and most of your scaling stuff won't necessarily work. However, a finisher, or say like rank 3 of a particular weapon skill, will be enough to allow for running around two-shotting everything. You have 0 chance to actually win unless you can do above 40 to everything on the map. And you might be saying, hey, why don't you go for bows and stick with bows and go for a dex build and whatever else? And that's a nice idea, in theory. But early on, you either need a really good bow or you need hammers. Because most stuff can't actually affect the lizards if you're going into random fights. So if you do decide to risk a random fight, yeah, you start off with anatomy. There's really no reason to pick up herpetology. It's a lot of points. But yeah, you can't really do much against lizards until you've got some better stuff under your belt, and especially at level 1, most stuff just bounces off of them. Because they're lizards, it's what they do. Thankfully, they only kept that reference to the original up for, well, about 1 level if you go there at level 1. Because, yeah, them things are beefy. If you've ever played the original, they will absolutely wreck your day, which is usually why you end up wanting to hire one of them, and then immediately realize that you lost some stats as soon as you hire them. For some reason, they come in with a different stat total than when you fight them. It's kind of an odd design choice, to be completely blunt. Alright, so Mr. Lands here is probably going to get himself killed off. Perfect, except for the fact that he's blocking everything. That is not so perfect. Dude, we're not doing this again. We're not doing this thing where this guy just avoids all damage. That's dumb. Sir, no. I'm gonna ask you to stop that right now. That mess is really annoying. I am not doing this a 26th time in a row. Like I said, it absolutely baffles the mind right now as to how on earth I've gone through this so dang many times and had it just... It wasn't necessarily bad RNG every time. In some cases, it was just like the AI deciding to go and collect all the bags or something, or say somebody randomly going and beeping the bell repeatedly. Like, if somebody beeps the bell, okay, I can just go and mute it for a second, but, like, one of the times was this new UPS guy that apparently decided that his best use, well, instead of going and asking for a key or something, basically just goes and mashes on all the buttons in the apartment building, and then just repeatedly presses all of them until somebody lets him in. But they always come during nap time. So they always wake up the kids. Just like, for God's sake, just stop mashing the button. Like, the thing never works to actually open the door up, but it'll be perfectly happy beeping in here. So basically I have to go leave the apartment and go let them into the building manually, because the dang thing won't properly open. Anyway, details. So let's go after this archer guy, because I think we're finally good here. No, he's gonna go ahead and heal. Bummer. Oh well. I don't want to risk losing out on this guy's potential loots. And there we go. Mr. Agares should finish him off. Now, I don't know if Agares here is actually supposed to be reference to March of the Black Queen or not. In the remake, they renamed him to Agares to presumably to match March of the Black Queen. In the original, I think it was like Garrett or something. I don't know. Something along those lines. Alright, so I'm going to take that stat card, and this is really about as good as it goes. You have both fights that you get full experience from. Picked up almost all the items here, already have anatomy, all good to go, and getting it reasonably trained up. For reference, if we go to anatomy here, yeah, it's only 2% up from this entire fight. But that's anatomy for you. It's the most busted skill in the game. It's also one of the slowest to level up. However, once we pick up counter, it ends up going up constantly because it literally goes up from everything. It's a skill you level up by existing. Alright, so now we got up to 6. And then we name our thing. And go ahead and go for MG1000. It's funny, nobody even tried to guess what it was last time. It's like the one time Mr. Cow isn't here to guess what the hell I'm talking about here with these names. Okay, then some plot happens, then Ravenous joins in, and then this is the funny Amazon, which I think you're more likely to get the Amazon at a higher level. I'm not certain about that. It also might be based on your name, because I can't help but notice that since I've tried doing this particular one, it's been consistently the Amazon every time. But yeah, they come in with a sword. They have 2 weapon skills that don't match that. It's funny. Hee hee ha. Now they're fired. They're fired for picking the wrong weapon here. Next we get the archer. They're fired for, I don't know. They didn't come in with their class mark, so bye. This one, she's fired for basically being a very suboptimal caster. They come in with only a stun ability and no way to do damage. This one comes in as a healer. We're not allowed to use any healers, so bye. Also, apparently they leveled up intelligence despite getting no benefit from it, so whatever. And then this one, it's funny because they'll usually roll high avoidance and strength for the spear user, which is good in terms of skills. It's just sometimes they'll just get absolutely nothing, and yeah, those times are just not great for them. Alright, so we get the Lombardia taken away, switch over to Knight. And yeah, since we picked up Anatomy already, and this is actually why I got screwed up last time, because I usually already have Anatomy by this point. The idea is that you're supposed to go in here, and you have exactly enough to be able to pick up one other skill. Now, what that skill is can depend on your situation. Typically picking up Strengthen from the Warrior class is not a terrible idea, because, yeah, you basically have Strengthen and Anatomy right off the bat, you're good to go. In this case, I believe I actually already had hammers, so did I get a hammer? Right? Yes. Okay. The hammer is not guaranteed. I'm going to go ahead and pick that up right now. So we already have about 10% extra damage there already stacking up. Now, it's not necessarily the roughly 10% scaling. And again, that's kind of an approximation. It's the more accurate way to put it is that you have +4 attack in both cases, so it's just better penetration. So with those in hand, basically means that we're going to be two-shotting things instead of anything else. And we can one-shot Cashwa, so that's always nice. She can stop railroading the plot for a moment. In this fight, if you want to potentially never trigger the ability to rewind time, if you found a way to get a longbow this early, like for example if there was a way to pick up the Archer class marks before, or switch over to Archer, before everything starts, and you can actually get a longbow and get yourself leveled up to be able to just take a step forward and shoot Orba in the face, you could potentially have a legit way to never trigger the chariot system. But anyway, that's one of the very few times that happens. I believe there's only 2 times that it actually happens. And there we go. It should be Cashwa gone. And she's out of here. This is looking good. Now, the reason we want to do that is because if Canopus gets too confident here, like, if he's overwhelmed, he'll usually start taking shots at the archers. Or, yeah, so he'll usually use his finisher on the archer. If he's feeling confident, he'll go for the leader instead. You'd think that'd be kind of backwards, because if he's panicking, he'd want to immediately end the fight, but for some reason, that's not the way he's programmed. So, that's not what he's doing. Anyway, that all said, since we have a little moment while this is going, how's your day going, Mr. Vale? And yeah, sorry, stuck in a bit of a ramble because I'm trying to remember what I said or didn't say. What the? Huh, alright. I think somebody just randomly was trying the door. What's that about? Let's see, a little chaotic. Not gonna lie, I accidentally misread that as a little Catholic. Anyway, trying to get to the gym today. The owner tells me when it's empty, so I'm waiting word for when it's safe to go over there. Gotta go infiltrate the gym. Gotta go get all the gains. I mean, that's good if you're feeling well enough to go to the gym already. I was figuring from other stuff that it might have been a bit soon for all of that already. Having a better day, though? Alright, let's go hammer time this guy. Funny little note here. Despite the fact that I've kind of given wrong information on this previously, yeah, the Halt Hammer, one of the few Knight of Lotus references in this one. Because, yeah, previously I always thought the original had called it the Halt Hammer too, but apparently it's heavy, not Halt. Anyway, see, it's been a good 2 months. Feeling my brain is fried, but body could survive the gym, so here's hoping. How are things with you? Stressful as all hell, but I'm hoping to see improvements pretty soonish. Had, well, technically got a customer service gig that I'm looking to be starting soon. It was supposed to be last week, and then they just kind of decided, no, we're not actually doing anything until next year, so waiting for January on that. However, ended up picking up another one that I'm hoping to start next week, that's supposed to be... Oh, and there we go. There's that archer shot I was talking about. That's supposed to be a more manual thing, but that's like $19.50 an hour for third shift, so not gonna complain about that. Granted, it's gonna require no sleep for multiple weeks, but, I mean, as long as rent gets paid. Still dealing with this asinine situation that we ended up getting charged extra for, well, for a whole dumb pet situation. Like, to make a long story short, it's been a certain way for years. We've been here 4 years. And not like 4 years in terms of, like, we've been here for years. I mean, like, literally exactly 4 years. Almost to the dot. And unfortunately, yeah, just suddenly they got greedy, so... so suddenly... God, where's the bill here? Friggin' $1,820 rent bill, are you serious? Ugh. So, that's fun. But yeah, still attempting to find a place to move to, though. Not that that's a particularly easy thing to do this year. Like, you'd think that more folks would have, would potentially have properties available for sale, considering how many people fled to Canada and all that kind of thing, but nope, not quite so. Alright, so at this point the bubble for actually getting an archer's passed, so we're just going to be going for this guy instead. Just finish this guy off, just go down the night route. If anybody ever knows of a particularly good way to get archer marks to drop consistently here, this would change the route entirely, but for the time being, this is fine. Because quite frankly, the knight is pretty busted strong for the most part. Later on, like, shortbow rogue is probably one of the strongest combinations, but early on, hammer knight is pretty darn dandy. And yes, I'm talking weird today. Got a weird headache. Don't know what that's about. Anyway, so by this point, we've got our extra thing here. Now, unfortunately, this leaves us 20 points away from being able to pick up Strengthen, so it's this next fight that opens up Strengthen. So we got Chrysero. At this point, you just slap on the better armor from before. Get your mail on. As long as you're running in full metal, you're good. All you gotta do is guarantee that the guests are gone, and then you just bum rush the leader, and that's it. And that's almost the build set up here. Because this doesn't seem like it would do very much, right? We're not doing anything too amazing yet, but give it a second. Let's give it a second. Oh, sweet. Well, enjoy groceries then. Alright. Now, I will say, the runs I was mentioning earlier, I was considering doing some streams of those at some point, the whole Outer Worlds thing. That's still a maybe. I mean, for one thing, PS4 streaming is a little bit weird. For another, just like as far as the rule set on that one goes, it's a little bit different from the one that was put up previously. Like, personally, I don't think getting rid of passive regeneration entirely is quite fair for that one. Because quite frankly, I don't really think it's possible, even on any technical level, like for anyone that's played Outer Worlds or not. Because the general idea is that, yeah, the AI is pretty brutal and accurate, and there's a few parts where you're required to take falls, which almost guarantees that you're in a situation where you're stuck at critical health the entire time, which is really annoying. So I tried it a few times, just going through it without actually doing that, just allowing passive regeneration and things like that, and it was a lot more fun to play. But, oh well. Oh well, oh well, oh well. Alright. Like I said before, all we have to guarantee at this point is that these guys go away. Usually, Donalto will get himself taken care of if you don't have a party to draw aggro off of. The last time that we were doing this, oh boy, he was just sitting there dodging 80% over and over and over, to the point that it finally took getting surrounded by 5 separate units to be able to finish him off. And judging by how slowly they're moving, you can guess how long that took. Now, I'm going to give him a bit of a pop here, and then we're just going to run around the side. Because what we want, ideally, is to just kind of slip past while everybody's focusing on Vice here. And we want Vice to be gone, and we want to make sure that enough of them go backwards to be able to take out the other guy as well. And you know what? Give me one quick second, because I got a call coming in. Okie dokie, and back from the call that would not end. Thankfully, that was actually the one of those 2 jobs I was talking about, although unfortunately they also might potentially be delayed till next year. What the crap. Anywho, hello there, Cerbo. Sorry for the delay there, Mr. Vale, and hello there, Mr. Procow. How's stuff going? But yeah, this is probably going to be the last fight that we're directly doing here, because quite frankly there is not very much else to show during this run. Basically, all we do from here is, the only weird part is that how easily you can go and curb stomp Nibith. I actually have another file to show exactly. I figured there might be a chance that we were running low on time, so I had another file to kind of show what we were going for the end of Chapter 1. Let's see, want to switch for Cosmos? Yeah, true, understandable. Don't know, are they still rare right now? Like, did the PS5 and all that end up taking over for how rare those are? Which, by the way, the reason I say we're close on time here, any second now, my kiddo's school bus is going to be rolling up, and that's when we're going to have to end this one. It's kind of repeatedly staring out the window here. But yeah, this one was meant to be just like a here's how you do the setup kind of thing. I think you get the general idea. You kind of rush some of the early stuff. You get access to anatomy that scales you up pretty well. You end up matching it with a matching weapon skill. You can match it with all this stuff. Once you, if you really want stuff to level up faster, you pick up counter. I mean, we're a few fights in. We're already almost we're already 37% of the way there. After Lenar is gone, like the next few fights, you literally just sit there and counterattack stuff over and over and over, and well, by the end of those fights, you're almost always at rank 2 or higher. So we're actually going to go ahead and abandon this one real quick. So we're just going to save this one for future reference, why not? There we go, let's save that over there. Yeah, I was saying earlier, we needed Mr. Procow here to explain what the MG1000 is, but anywho, so yeah, this is kind of the end result that you get after all that stuff. And yeah, get something like this. This guy actually had way worse strength going into it, but similar vitality. Ended up rolling more dex than strength. But this stuff will keep you all the way through. You get over to here. Once you get this thing to rank 6, by the way, you get a big ol' AoE. It's pretty busted. Usually what I like to do is just kind of keep rolling with the setup until you get up to rank 2 anatomy and then rank 3 hammers. By that point, you can just start taking random fights with any class that allows you to use a hammer. After you take maybe 4 or 5 different classes, you have enough stats to just basically jump into any other weapon, at which point you can just hop between classes willy-nilly and collect all their stats and become ridiculous. You can also throw an Augment Ice on there to make the finisher hit real good, because it's one of the few that actually comes up with an elementally scaled finisher, so that's all well and dandy. Also, let's see, I have no clue honestly, but between what games I have, the new Monster Hunter coming out, it would be nice. Actually, I have 2 Switch games I was gifted, and another older one is already on Switch. Well, that'd be fantastic then. Yeah, no, we were, so funnily enough, we actually had an offer earlier, like, hey, would you like to go get one of these just kind of on credit? But then weirdly enough, they got sold out within a few hours. Although, I think that was maybe one of the mini ones, which I don't personally have an issue with, but I know my wife was only looking at the bigger one. It's very odd to to say that she was looking at the Switch more than I was. But anyway, so that's the main gist of this whole setup. I suppose I should probably ask if there's any questions at this point, huh? Because yeah, you just go 6 warriors. At the end of Chapter 1, if you just did straight story fights, you're going to wind up with 18 on the Knights. Actually, I don't think this guy even started off with a gauntlet, so that's another one. If you happen to spawn a gauntlet on Dude Guy, then you actually get a additional bit of strength there. Oh, dang it, that was friggin' loud. Just blew my dang eardrum out that time. Sorry about that. But I think that all this covers it here. We're just going to go forward until that bus gets here. See, someone gave me, then tried to take it back. Oh, Diablo 3 and Daemon X Machina. Yeah, DXM looks awesome. Watched that through several times already. I'm not entirely sure if it would be, if you do many challenge runs on it, but it looks dang fun. So, funny thing here, if you end up deciding to go and save Ravenous for one reason or another, which potentially you can get some extra gear later, you can actually just keep running forward because the enemy will only attack her, and she will only attack them. You're actually strong enough at this point that you don't even have to worry about her. She basically takes one look down the hill, and she's like, yeah, no, I want no part of that. See, prepping a big update for the mod to come out tonight? Oh, well, dang it, that's yet another thing to throw on the list then, and tomorrow there's one opening that I was going to do some OB64 or something. Crap. Blade only run of DXM. Why go blade only when you can do, like, swing cars and stuff only? But yeah, I'm gonna have to take a look at that update then. Yeah, at this point there's way too many runs started for anything to be remotely viable, because there's this, now we got Banner of the Maid on there, there's still Fell Seal to finish, there's the level 1 run to finish of this, there's the One Vision solo to finish, they're promised to do at least one of these challenge runs here, there's the XCOM run to finish, there's Chimera Squad to finish, there's, what's it? How was that other one? I can't remember the other one right now. Anyway, there's a lot of them, is the main takeaway. And they just keep getting added. And yeah, Cerebro Monster only. Still got to finish that one. Doing one... Currently, if we're running at our current rate, I think that should be done by about 2085. We just do about one episode per year. Something like that. Sounds about right? Yeah, that's just one of those weird things, though, because I really, really, really wanted to cover more of that one. And it's just like every time that I go to do one of those, I get sidetracked and end up doing something else. And then the entire streaming schedule gets thrown in the dumpster for several months in a row. That's kind of how this ends up going. Like right now, during this holiday break, and transitioning to a new job, and I swear to God, this thing keeps disconnecting. And transitioning to a new job now, I guarantee there will be yet another delay. Always fun. Although, interestingly enough, there's actually going to be another video coming out. That's Dagar decided to start teaching some interesting board games there, so that's pretty fun too. Now, in terms of being able to one-shot everything, even Knights. Even Knights can get completely squashed if you do this kind of setup. So that's fun. And you just kind of tank through everything, and then eventually you get more stuff. That's how you do this challenge. You just keep slowly building and slowly building and slowly building, and the game comes up with new counters, and then you become terrified of archers, and then you get deflect, and then you try to get that ranked up, and then you realize that's not going to work too well if you just keep getting shot, so you find ways to do low-level archers over and over to go and try to rank up deflect, but then you realize it'll probably take about 4 years to actually rank that skill up, so you end up going for different kinds of range defenses and find new ways to snipe archers before they can snipe you, and it's a fun challenge is what I'm trying to get at. Oh, alright, let's see. Oh, in January, I think, Switch demo for the new Monster Hunter coming out. PS4 is acting like a PS Plus last time I played World. I think they might just have given everyone PS Plus or something, because I was... So earlier I was talking about potentially doing a stream thing of Outer Worlds, which we haven't paid for PS Plus in like 8 months, so... Actually, what 8 months? It's like 16 months. And I'm pretty sure streaming is not one of those things that just it can do without Plus, so maybe they're just giving everybody Plus for free right now. Or maybe they just accidentally gave everybody PS Plus as a big old middle finger to get everybody playing online games because they're so mad at Cyberpunk right now. Good God, that poor game. It's just so sad to see. So many people were looking forward to it. I was hoping it would kind of become a sort of middling success, maybe go down the New Vegas route, but man, like, at this point, it didn't even get thrown into a flaming dumpster. It, like, got thrown into that flaming dumpster and launched off a cliff, hit with a rocket, somebody dropped a Boeing on top of it. The poor thing just does not stop. At this point, they've had some 3 separate investor freakouts. They've got multiple class action lawsuits. They got kicked out of multiple stores. I mean, it's in rough shape, but truth be told, the few runs that I watched of it didn't seem they were that bad. Like, it was buggy, sure, but, I mean, it's a bit much, no? Like, did anybody here actually end up picking it up? Is it really that bad? Because as far as I can tell, it's... I mean, hell, I remember New Vegas being a hell of a lot worse on launch. I mean, that crap crashed like 90% of the time they tried to do anything. To this day, the PS3 version of New Vegas barely runs. It's still one of my favorite versions. It's just so jank that it crashes about half the time that you play it. Is what that bad? Cyberpunk? No, Cyberpunk on, like, old gen. Well, I guess current gen? The 4s and the Xbox, I don't even know how many, because there were a billion of them that came out. That one. Series last year. We'll put it that way. There's like a bajillion different Xboxes, and I have... This is the first time I've ever seen one of those and have absolutely no dang clue what the hell the Xbox even is right now. I have no clue which version's which. But yeah, it was bad enough that it's probably one of the biggest PR disasters in, well, in the industry's history, as far as I can tell. So you saw a video where the PCs weren't even rendered properly. The face was like a faceless mannequin. Yeah. Apparently, some of those were essentially making use of there's some kind of mechanic in the game specifically for doing that that's supposed to have all kinds of weird visual glitches with it. But like I know in some cases, if anyone here has played Saints Row 3, there's one part that's intended to be glitchy because you're in the Matrix, but it's trash. And so a bunch of reviews were like, oh man, this part was so buggy, and you get flung all over the place, and there's literally an on-screen indicator to tell you, hey, this is supposed to be happening. Apparently some of those missing textures were something like that it's like some kind of in-universe camouflage thing or something. I don't remember exactly, but it was specifically the old gen versions that were... It's just like stuff exploding all over the place. And again, I've seen worse, so I'm not entirely sure why it's getting not so much thrown under the bus as thrown under the monster truck that's repeatedly running them over every few minutes. But yeah, it's quite the fall from grace for sure. Either way, as you can see, this build is a little bit overpowered, at least in the early game. It definitely falls off very, very quickly. Like, usually by the end of Chapter 3, you want to be running something entirely different, but yeah, you just run around, you collect cards, you hit stuff, it dies. That's how this works. Weapon ranks are going to be the main thing that determines how well you're going to do. And if you don't end up getting the right weapon ranks, you can wind up completely screwed, and quite frankly, two-handers never become viable. As far as I've seen, there's no point in a solo run like this that two-handers are ever worth using. Or even not a liability. Even cudgels somehow do better. Like, a literal walking stick is somehow more useful than a claymore in this game. It's a little sad. Oh well. There's a wizard. He's gone now. And then she survives, and I don't believe you get any experience for her. That's why I allowed that to happen. But yeah, at this point, apparently that whole launch has gone from making back their original development costs in about 3 days to turning around to the point where they've somehow lost billions. Like, hot dang, what is that? Anyway, so that'll be that for now. That's basically how this whole setup goes. Hopefully it's useful to somebody. I've got to get going, because I believe I just heard them off in the distance here. So you guys have a good one. Take care. Hopefully gonna see you for an OB64 one tomorrow. If not, you guys have a fantastic Christmas. Thank you for stopping by, and take care.